Welcome back to Development Club. Today we continue with basic codependence, and we're going to cover the largest chapter of the book, which are the 5 core symptoms of codependence, where they come from, and how they look in an adult codependent's life. 5 core symptoms. Number 1 is difficulty experiencing appropriate levels of self-esteem. The idea here is that the internal experience of one's own preciousness and value as a person is self-esteem. It comes from inside a person and moves outward in relationships in a functional person. Codependents, however, experience self-esteem as one of 2 extremes. Either low or non-existent, they think that they are worth less than others, or as arrogance or grandiosity, and they think that they are set apart or superior to others. And either of these result from messages that people have received from their primary or major caregivers when they were growing up. So children are either given the message that they are less than others, and that's the low self-esteem, or ends up becoming low self-esteem in adults, or they come from a family system where children are taught to find fault in others, or are actually taught that they are superior to other people, and that leads to arrogance or grandiosity. She mentions a cool, insightful note that often kids who have to play the adult role growing up will grow up themselves to have a sense of arrogance or grandiosity because they've sort of had this adult role, which like their peers normally wouldn't have had at that point. Another thing that she mentions in terms of esteem is a thing that she calls other esteem, which is not esteem in other people, but esteem based on external things like looks, money, friends, jobs, status, spouses, degrees. And these are okay things to enjoy, but they're not the actual source of esteem, which she doesn't explicitly say, but she implies that it should come from just the fact that you are and being, and that that's okay and it's enough. Difficulties expressing appropriate self-esteem. Number 2 is difficulty setting functional boundaries. She says that boundaries have 3 purposes. Number 1, to keep people from coming into our space and abusing us. Number 2, to keep us from going into the space of others and abusing them. And then number 3, to give each of us a way to embody our sense of who we are, a sort of physical sense. So external boundaries are between people. This could be physical or sexual. So this is kind of like a bell-shaped jar, so physical boundaries, right? And then internal boundaries protect our thinking, feeling, and behavior. So we are responsible for our own thinking, feelings, and behavior. This is more of like a bulletproof vest with small doors that open to the inside, and then we control those doors to control who we allow in or not. Ways these can be impacted negatively are they can be non-existent. We can just have no boundaries at all. They can be damaged, in which sense there can be like just walls instead of, we covered a book on boundaries last year, and they talked about that it should be like fences with gates, and so inappropriately it would be walls, so no one's allowed in at all. And there can also be a function of alternating between non-existent boundaries and walls. So proper functional boundary is like a fence with a gate, not a wall or not nothing. The number 3 symptom of codependence is difficulty owning our own reality. So reality here meaning experiencing ourselves in the following ways. So through the body, which is what we look like or how our bodies are operating. Through thinking, which is how we give meaning to incoming data. Through feeling, which is our emotions. And through behavior, which is what we do or what we don't do. And there are 2 primary ways of not owning our reality in any of those 4 ways, which is I know what my reality is, but I will not tell you, I will not share it. And number 2 is I do not even know what my reality is. And this comes from people's reality being denied in childhood. For example, a child who witnesses parents fighting, and then the parents deny that it happened. So Melody asserts here that the worst experience for a child is to have their reality denied. So if the child says, "This is horrible and I'm scared, Daddy yelled bad words at Mommy, and Mommy, you broke the good vase and told me to be the one that you told me to be careful about." And then Mom turns to the daughter and says, like, "You're crazy, Molly. Daddy didn't say anything bad to me. There's nothing to be afraid of. And that vase wasn't special. If you think that's horrible, then you're wrong. We were just having a normal fight." More on the word normal in a minute. So Molly thinks then, like, I think that was horrible, and they're telling me it was okay. I must be crazy. There's a gap here. the idea here, people that can be at A or B, either one of those, with any of those four components, which is to say that they can know what the reality is and not share it, or they can not even know what the reality is with respect to the body, thinking, feelings, and behaviors. Fourth symptom is difficulty acknowledging and meeting our own needs and wants and being interdependent with others. This is all to say that a child must have his or her needs met initially by his or her major caregiver, and will be taught to take care of each one of those things in the course of growing up. So have their needs met and then transition to being able to meet their own needs. An adult is responsible for knowing how to address each need and for asking for help when it is truly needed. It's something we talked about last year with Abraham Maslow and the hierarchy of needs. So needs versus wants. And she specifically addressed this here. She says, the needs are food, shelter, clothing, medical attention, dental attention, physical nurturing, emotional nurturing is like time, attention, and direction from others, education, spirituality, sex, and financial resources like earning, saving money, spending, budgeting, investing money, all that stuff. Wants. There are little wants and big wants. It's PSS. So the little wants bring us joy or even great joy, and the big wants take our lives in a general direction and bring fulfillment or purpose. So like, I want to be a doctor, I want to marry this person, I want to have a child or children. 4 ways we can not have our needs met. Number 1 is we can be too dependent, which is to say that I know my needs and wants, but I expect others to take care of them for me. I wait, expecting them to know what they should do. That's too dependent. We can be anti-dependent, which I acknowledge to myself that I have needs and wants, but I try to meet them myself, and I'm unable to accept help or guidance from others. So we're sort of I don't need anybody. Rather than go without the thing and be vulnerable or ask for help. This is sort of a reactive response. We can be needless or wantless, which is like I have needs and wants, but I'm not actually even aware of them. Number 4 is that I confuse my wants and needs. So I know like what I want and I get it, I know how to get it, but I don't know what I need. For example, I try not to take care of my needs, but I'm unaware of them, and I just buy everything that I want, for example. I get everything I want, but I don't work on a deeper level. And where this comes from, this idea of being too dependent, anti-dependent, needless, wantless, or confusing my wants and needs. If a parent met our needs without teaching us, then we can become too dependent in adulthood, the first option. If a parent attacks their kids for having or expressing needs, they will become anti-dependent in adulthood because they learn that I don't need anybody else. If needs or wants were ignored by parents, they will become needless or wantless as adults. And they will often work hard on other people's needs. Okay, 5th symptom of codependence is difficulty experiencing and expressing our reality moderately or in a moderate way. And the belief here is that moderation isn't enough because there's 4 manifestations of this. The body. So this is people that will be dressed either on one of 2 extremes, super bland or blending in, like just wearing sweatshirts and sweatpants all the time, or on the other side, in provocative clothing. And they can also be like really fat or thin, or with respect to hygiene, people who are doing too much grooming or not enough. To express reality moderately, also with thinking. So it's a very black and white thinking in codependence. Either with me or against me. There's only one right answer to any problem, is the thought process. Feelings. And this is the heart and soul of codependence, PSS. The difficulty of knowing what their feelings are and how to share them. So codependents tend to feel little to no emotion or have explosive, agonizing emotions. So sort of one pole or the other. And then behavior, trusting everyone or trusting no one at all, letting anyone touch them or allowing no one to touch them at all. They may discipline their kids severely or not at all. So it's like very back and forth and not in the middle. And then she speaks to this in a section about, at the very end of the chapter, she talks about normal and her objection to the word normal in recovery here. She said normal means what most people do, and that's an accurate definition. And then she says that there are many people do engage in thinking, feeling, behavior that is not healthy. I think she wants to say that most people, because most or many, anyways, She likes to use the term functional versus dysfunctional behavior. People who swing to this is a cool insight here too, people who swing to the polar opposite of dysfunctional behavior to find recovery are invariably disappointed. Why? This is because the opposite of dysfunctional behavior is more dysfunctional behavior. Functional behavior is somewhere near the center between two extremes. And she talks about using the word moderate as well as functional. So in the sense that we just mentioned, codependents tend to like one extreme or the other. And then she actually brings up alcohol, which I thought was an interesting point because we want to have moderate behavior. And then what is moderate behavior with respect to alcohol? Moderate behavior would be drinking in moderation. But alcoholics in recovery are not taught to drink in moderation. They're taught to drink not at all. That is the tip of an iceberg for another conversation another time. That was a long chapter. We will continue next time with Facing Codependence.